Ready for a wild one today? We're diving into the history of qualitative research
Really going to uncover how those fascinating, messy human insights are gathered.
and how the technology used has totally transformed how we understand it all.
Yeah, the tech side of qualitative research is a story people might not know that well.
Right, like when we say research, most people think stats and spreadsheets.
Not the really interesting stuff, the human stories.
Exactly. And the crazy ways researchers have captured those stories over time.
It's come a long way, that's for sure.
We're talking pre-tape recorder even, can you imagine? Your only tool is a notepad and a pen.
Talk about pressure. Every detail, every quote, writing on your penmanship in memory.
I'd be lost. My handwriting is barely legible as it is. Plus, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
It was a different world. And you're right, a lot of pressure on researchers back then. Imagine conducting an interview, and your only record is what you managed to scribble down.
Talk about high-stakes note-taking. I bet there are some great stories about those days.
Oh, definitely. I came across one anecdote about researchers ducking into restrooms to jot down notes before they forgot.
No way! That's hilarious and kind of stressful. But seriously, what kind of limitations did that put on the research itself?
Huge limitations. Not just forgetting details, but how do you compare research over time if it's all filtered through individual memories?
It'd be like trying to build a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And probably some pieces from a different puzzle mixed in.
Good analogy.
Hmm.
And it meant those subtle things like tone of voice, hesitation, they were almost impossible to capture consistently.
And those nuances are crucial in qualitative research, right? It's not just about what's said, but how it's said.
Absolutely. So when the tape recorder finally arrived on the scene, well, you can imagine what a game changer it was.
It must have felt miraculous. Suddenly you could capture every word, every pause.
It was a revolution. Researchers could finally say goodbye to relying solely on memory,
And actually start digging into all those aspects that were so hard to capture before.
like conversational dynamics, pauses, even coughs and laughter. A gold mine of information that was invisible before.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because every new tool has its quirks, right? What were some of the unexpected challenges that came with the tape recorder?
Well, the tape recorder may have solved one problem, but it created a new one: transcription.
Ah, yes, the dreaded transcription. Even today, with all our fancy software, it's still a beast to deal with.
Now imagine the hours researchers were poring over these tapes, trying to get every word down accurately.
It must felt like an endless task. Did it impact how much research they could realistically do?
It definitely posed a challenge, leading to some fascinating debates.
Oh, tell me more about those debates. What were researchers saying about this new world of tape recorders and mountains of transcripts?
While some, like sociologist Jack Douglas, argued that this new focus on transcription risked researchers becoming too fixated on the technology itself.
Interesting. So instead of focusing on the human element of the research, they were getting bogged down in the mechanics of it all.
That was his concern, that we might lose sight of the why in the pursuit of capturing every single what.
That's a really good point. Did this debate change how researchers approached using the tape recorder?
It sparked some important conversations about the role of technology in qualitative research, a debate that continues even today, actually.
It sounds like it's all about striking that balance, recognizing the amazing potential of these tools while staying mindful of their limitations.
Definitely. And realizing that technology should enhance our understanding, not dictate it.
I love that. So we've gone from frantic scribbling to capturing every word, and now a whole new debate about the role of technology. Where do we go from here in this evolution?
Well, hold on to your hats, because the story gets even more interesting as computers enter the scene.
Ah, yes. The dawn of the digital age. I bet researchers had mixed feelings about that.
You can say that again. It was a wild time. Imagine researchers with mountains of transcribed interviews and no good way to organize them.
Oh man, I can relate. I get overwhelmed just trying to keep my email inbox under control.
This was next level.
Yeah.
And that's where computers and this new thing called QDA software came in.
QDA software.
Yeah. Stands for Qualitative Data Analysis Software.
Catchy. So this was specifically designed to help researchers make sense of all those interviews and field notes.
Exactly. It was like giving them a superpower, the ability to search, code, and find patterns in all that data.
I bet some researchers were thrilled, while others were maybe a little hesitant.
Oh, definitely. Some saw it as this incredible time saver, while others worried it might oversimplify things.
Yeah, like could a computer really grasp the nuances of human experience?
That was a big concern. Qualitative research is about so much more than just categorizing data points.
It's about understanding meaning, context, emotion, all that messy stuff that makes us human.
And some researchers worried that relying too heavily on software might cause us to lose sight of that.
So did QDA software live up to the hype? Did it revolutionize the field or just create a whole new set of
It
problems?
definitely shook things up,
Huh.
but not in the way some people feared. It didn't replace researchers. It became more like a superpowered assistant.
I like that, the superpowered assistant. What were some of the ways this new tech changed how researchers worked?
Well, imagine being able to take a huge stack of interview transcripts, feed them into the software, and then search for specific themes or keywords.
Okay, that does sound pretty handy. No more spending weeks flipping through pages and highlighting everything by hand.
Exactly. It saved researchers tons of time and allowed them to analyze data in ways that simply weren't possible before.
It's like having a superpower. Did it change the type of questions researchers were asking or the amount of data they tried to collect?
You know, that's what many people assumed would happen, that researchers would start doing way more interviews, thinking they could handle anything with this new tech.
Because they had the software to process it all, so why not go big?
Right. But interestingly, the research on that is surprising. It suggests the average number of interviews per study didn't actually explode as much as you might think.
Really? That's wild. It's like having a Ferrari, but mostly using it to drive to the grocery store.
A perfect analogy. And I think it shows that researchers realize something important,
What's that?
that in qualitative research, depth is often more valuable than sheer volume.
So it was less about collecting mountains of data and more about really digging into the nuances of what they already had.
Exactly. QDA software gave them the tools to do that digging more efficiently.
So it wasn't just about working faster, it was about thinking differently about the entire research process.
Right. And that brings us to today, where we have a whole new technological wave changing the landscape again. Artificial intelligence.
AI. Now that's a game changer if I've ever heard one. Everyone's talking about AI these days.
And for good reason. It's poised to transform qualitative research in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Okay, so AI has officially entered the chat. What does that mean for researchers grappling with all those human stories and experiences? So AI is here, ready or not. I imagine researchers are both excited and a little wary.
That's a good way to put it. It's a powerful tool, but not without its challenges.
Right, like we've been talking about, qualitative research is all about nuance.
The human element. And that's not always easy to capture with algorithms.
Exactly. So how are researchers even beginning to apply AI in a way that makes sense for this kind of work?
Well, it's still early days, but we're seeing some really interesting applications emerging.
Like what? Give me some examples.
One area where AI is already making a big impact is transcription. Imagine being able to feed hours of interview recordings into an AI and get accurate transcripts back in a fraction of the time.
Okay, that does sound incredibly useful. No more struggling with audio playback and trying to catch every single word.
Exactly. And that frees up researchers to focus on the really important stuff, like analyzing the data and finding those hidden meanings.
So it's not about replacing the researcher, but rather giving them more time and brain space to actually think critically about the data.
Right. It's about leveraging AI's strength to enhance our own human abilities.
I like that. It's about collaboration, not replacement.
Precisely. And this kind of collaboration can lead to some really fascinating insights. For example, imagine using AI to identify patterns in large data sets that might not be immediately obvious to a human researcher.
Like maybe subtle shifts in language or recurring themes that only become apparent when you're analyzing hundreds of interviews.
Exactly. AI can help us see the forest for the trees, so to speak.
And that can open up whole new avenues for understanding the human experience.
Absolutely. It's like having a new pair of glasses that lets us see the world in a different light.
I love that analogy. But with any new tool, we have to be mindful of its limitations. What are some of the challenges researchers are facing as they incorporate AI into qualitative research?
One of the biggest challenges is ensuring that the AI tools we're using are actually aligned with the goals of our research. Just because an AI can find patterns doesn't mean those patterns are meaningful or useful.
Right, it's about asking the right questions and interpreting the data thoughtfully. We can't just blindly trust the output of an algorithm.
Exactly. And that's where the human element comes in. We need researchers who are skilled in both qualitative methods and AI literacy.
So it's a whole new skill set for researchers to develop.
It is, but it's an exciting challenge. And it's one that I think will ultimately lead to a richer and more nuanced understanding of the human experience.
That's what it's all about, right?
Right.
Finding new and innovative ways to understand ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely. And who knows what amazing discoveries await us as we continue to explore the intersection of technology and qualitative research.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from scribbling notes in restrooms to harnessing the power of AI. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it just goes to show that the quest to understand the human experience is an ever-evolving one.
That's a great place to leave it. A huge thanks to our expert for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of qualitative research and technology. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for lending us your ears. Until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.